one of those videos that's really important to listen to, especially if you live in Ohio. Legislators in Ohio today are planning to introduce a bill that basically will introduce a total abortion ban, meaning that there would be no longer exceptions for being forced into it, or if it was a family member that did it. It doesn't matter if they were 10 years old, 12 years old, 14 years old, they would still not have access to it. But that's not the only thing. And I want to read this to you verbatim. This says the Ohio Prenatal Equal Protection Act would overturn the amendment to the Ohio Constitution voted on in 2023 that establishes an individual right to one's own reproductive medical treatment, including but not limited to abortion. Here's the thing though, it's not just abortion. This also would overturn the right to things like contraception, fertility treatments, and miscarriage care. The new law also states that personhood rights begin at the moment of fertilization and therefore would be protected under the law, meaning that if you have something like an IUD, that would now be illegal. And speaking of illegal, not only would this bill criminalize the procedure together, so the people who are doing the procedure, but it would also penalize the person who was getting the procedure, and to what that looks like, we don't know yet. Now, like I said, there are no exceptions to this, except there is one little caveat. The first one is that if there is an ectopic pregnancy, that is a caveat they will allow to do, or to prevent the mother's death or impairment of a major bodily function. But again, that's very loosely interpreted on how they would determine that. So it could be when it's too late, they'll finally do something. Now, this bill is being introduced by Representatives Levi Dean and Jonathan Newman, who've been working on it with a man by the name of Austin Beagle, who is part of End Abortion Ohio. And let me tell you some of the things that that guy has had to say. When Austin Beagle was asked if he was concerned the bill might go against the will of the voters, he said he was not, because the will of the voters was evil. Anyways, as always, drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to share this with somebody, especially if you live in Ohio, so that you guys are aware of what's going on in your state. And as always, hit that follow button.